Sekeres Price for Wednesday, May 1st, 2024. We're coming to you from the Nation Network studio built by Arbor Lee here at the iconic Wall Center, downtown Vancouver, and a special welcome to our new neighbors, the Nails, a new salon that's opened up next door. So best of luck to Sean and his team. Welcome to the neighborhood here at the Wall Center. Matt Sekeres alongside Blake Price, grading stats, hitting switches, conducting things with Sean Chessman. We got a big show coming up, and it's all brought to you by Applewood Auto Group.
And Applewood Infinity in Langley has the 2024 QX80. Get everything in there that you need. It's a nice, hulking SUV. Take you from A to B in style. Lease it at 0.99% for 18 months on all trims, and you get non-stack cash of $9,000. All at Applewood Infinity in Langley. It's all good at Applewood.
Our poll question today, should Tocchet have challenged for goaltender interference? Yes or no? You can vote at Sekeres Price on Twitter and YouTube. And Blake, we discussed this a little bit on our post-game podcast Tuesday evening. And if you're not familiar, folks, we are doing very bite-sized, manageable post-game podcasts. They're usually out within an hour of the final horn after these hockey games. Blake, I was skeptical about it last night when we did the pod. I am now resolute. No. I know Tocchet called it 50-50 in the post game. Now, Rick lives in Vegas and has a history with gambling. I think the more Rick watches it, the more it's closer to 75-25. No. And for many reasons here. First and foremost, and I thought I saw this on the video, and I wasn't sure when we were talking about it yesterday, Blake, but I've gone back and watched it, God, many, many times over. First of all, it's called a goal on the ice. So you have to find evidence to overturn.
Yeah.
Secondly, Teddy Bluger's right skate hits Artur Shelov's in the glove, and that's what begins the backward motion of the goaltender back towards his net. The puck's never controlled. In fact, I'm not even sure the puck ever stops, Blake. I think it's forever loose, even if it's obscured at one point below his jersey. So I realize Nyquist comes crashing in. Was it Myers or Zadorov who's checking him there? And that causes the big propulsion into the net. But I think that puck, and I think Shelov, by virtue of the contact with Bluger's skate, is already headed back towards the net. So I can understand saying challenge. You're up 3-1 in the series. It's a huge goal. Fair enough. You want to roll the dice. But I just don't think that goal would have been overturned.
I'm watching it on loop right now, Matt, and Bluger is completely stationary, and so is Shelov at the moment Nyquist comes in. There's no...
Watch his right toe. Watch it make contact with the goaltender's glove hand.
With the goaltender's glove hand.
Yeah. Bluger's right foot makes contact with the goaltender's glove before Nyquist
with
arrives
the blocker,
on the
with
scene.
the blocker.
There's the blocker.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but the puck is at his waist. It's the puck's not moving until Nyquist comes crashing in. I'm the other way. I'm 75-25 now.
Oh,
I've swung the other direction. Yeah.
Grady, break the tie here.
Goaltender interference.
Yeah.
I just didn't like how Bluger got propelled into Shelov's to bump it. I understand what the ruling is, but it just create that change.
The other part of it is
Bluger only gets propelled after he makes contact on his own volition with the goaltender.
Yeah.
But Bluger's at a standstill. As I said, if you look at it, him and Shelov are stationary when Nyquist comes crashing in.
That's after he has kicked him in the glove or in the blocker.
Yeah. I mean, that's way down at the other post.
If you watch, Shelov starts drifting back the moment that contact is made. And again, the puck is certainly not controlled.
I think with that amount of time left,
it's not frozen.
No,
right?
it's not frozen.
No one is making the argument the puck is frozen.
No, but it's propelled in by the collision there. I think there's enough time left in the period where you take that chance. You take that chance in a series where goals have been at a premium and your penalty kill have been red hot.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think you and especially in the wake of what we saw the previous night in Florida.
And I understand that rationale and reasoning as well. The previous night in Florida, and incidentally, the lawyer from Prince George has apologized for his comments. John Cooper, Tampa Bay Lightning coach.
And not a surprise.
You got to take the chance, though, because you just don't know
So,
where they're going to go with that.
Yeah. And more often than not, it is a dangerous game to play that with the National Hockey League. Again, I can understand people saying, take the chance. This was the spot to take the chance. I just, given the goal was called a good goal on the ice, given you've got a lot going on there that I think complicates a cut and dry goaltender interference call, I'm just not sure they would have won the job.
I think they also fell in love with their process and that they've got it right. The previous times they did not go down that road. They were rewarded because I think they made the right choice.
Yep.
And they overcame those problems, but I think they fell in love with their patience almost.
Yep. And the other thing there, that's the 1-1 goal, right? Like that's not the go-ahead goal. So if it's the go-ahead goal, then maybe you're a little more willing to run the risk. But no, I thought it was good process. I thought it was the wise call from Rick Tocchet and the staff, and of course, including the video coach, Dylan Crawford. Let's get to our top story, brought to you by Mr. Lube. Opportunity lost. And now it's nervous time. Blake, how nervous are you for them in Game 6? How nervous would you be for them if it's coming back here for a Game 7 Sunday?
I mean, as we just saw with the Preds, I think you can overcome the nerves and knowing that your back is against the wall. I mean, we just saw the Nashville Predators had their backs against the wall, and they were able to push that aside and play a very good road hockey game. So I think they can park that and still be the better team. They are the ones that can win the series in game number 6 on Friday. The Predators cannot.
House money. And I almost feel better about their chances Friday on the road than I do in Game 7 at home. But perhaps that's just because I'm fixated on Canucks luck and nothing ever going easy for this franchise.
Top story brought to you by Mr. Lube. You need a tire change or tire service? Mr. Lube provides no appointment tire service and sales. Drop by anytime for tire rotation, repair, balancing, servicing all makes and models, including electric vehicles. 16 locations in the Lower Mainland for one near you. You go to MrLube.com.
It was a terrific first period for the Vancouver Canucks, but alas, no goals, no lead. And so an opponent that you pretty much dominated in period 1 hangs around and finds their game, and talked about it, that things started to break down in the second period for them. Let's hear from the head coach on the need to play harder here and on that second Nashville goal.
I think there's some moments there in the third where you just got to dig in. Even on that second goal, we had 3 or 4 opportunities to either box out or win an edge battle in the off the draw, or it was a weak side rim, get that puck before the ice. You got to dig in. There's just sometimes you just might have to get a punch in the mouth just to get a puck out. I think that's our next thing. You got to be. I just felt there's 3 or 4 mistakes on that shift before the goal. They didn't think we digged in hard enough on that, and they ended up scoring the goal.
Yeah, and that's our next thing. Gosh, you really hope that lesson is learned here in the 2 days off before Game 6. Because if that lesson isn't learned, that could be a first-round Stanley Cup playoff exit for the Vancouver Canucks.
And yet I can see, if the Canucks eliminate them in game number 6, I could see Andrew Burnett saying all the exact same things. Because no one's playing the pants off the other team. The Predators aren't getting many good looks at all. Like Artur Shelov was not in trouble. How many spectacular saves did he make outside of the goals that were scored? Like 3 others, maybe?
Yeah.
Like 3 other really, really amazing saves?
I was just say 2. I mean, certainly the glove save on McDonough in the first period.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think Andrew Burnett would love a few more scoring chances for his team. I think he'd love his team to dig in. It's a bit of a chess match out there right now.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, not being an NHL coach, how you break through this veneer here. Like, I really don't. I don't know how either team is going to bust this game. I had small hope at the Zadorov goal. The next couple of shifts were pretty promising for the Vancouver Canucks. And I thought, you know what? Are we about to see a 4-0 game or 1 game? Like, did they just figure this out?
Nashville spirit already waning after losing game 4 in the manner they did. Then they give up the first goal. Of course, the Canucks have been so good when scoring the first goal this year. You're right. They were buzzing, and you think, okay, we got them where we want them, and
just couldn't get the other one.
Put them away.
Couldn't get that second one.
And in part, that's because the power play once again. I mean, it's just sucking life out of the team. You can see it visibly. They get on a power play, they do absolutely nothing, and it affects them. 0 for 2 last night, 2 for 13 on the series, and JT Miller taking this one pretty hard. Here's the Canucks centerman on what's going wrong with the man advantage.
Our power play was awful. We need to take a look in the mirror as a group here. It can't just be every other game decided to play well. So we could have been a factor in the game and we weren't, but I don't know. There's a lot of emotion in the game, and they were resilient. So it's hard to close teams out.
And give Nashville credit. They have done an extraordinary job of suppressing shots on goal by the Vancouver Canucks in this series. The Canucks have 91 shots through 5 games. They're averaging 8.2 shots per game. It is nearly 6 shots per game fewer than the next worst team in the Stanley Cup playoffs. And it is a full 10 shots per game off their seasonal average of 28.4. Look, the skaters have done a good job on the defensive side of things for the Nashville Predators. And then UC Soros entered the chat last night, Blake. And really, for all his accolades, he had been very ordinary, if that, in the first 4 games of the series. I think one of the concerns you have going to Nashville now is that their all-star goaltender is feeling it.
Yeah, I mean, I think they still will fall back onto the fact that they just aren't getting enough rubber on said goaltender. I mean, the goal that they score is a bad goal. That's the worst of the 3 goals. The 3 goals in the game, Soros gives up the worst one. So I think they still see a crack that they can infiltrate. To me, their biggest quandary is probably we just need to make him be tested more, because they're missing enough shots that should be on goal. There's enough scoring chances where they can't even pull the trigger on a shot, period. I mean, the Canucks scoring chances are far outweigh their actual shots on goal. So they've got to make sure that their chances, when they're given them, are testing UC Soros. Like 13 high danger chances credited to them at 5-on-5 in that game. How many of those were actually shots on goal? How many are user error high dangers that are missed? You've got to make UC Soros work for his paycheck here. And through 5 games, I don't know that they necessarily have. And that's too bad, given his save percentage. I think he looks very human. I think he looks like a good goaltender. I don't think he's had to be a great one. I really don't.
But that's what I'm worried about. That you give UC Soros enough games, he's going to paint a Mona Lisa in one of them. And I wonder if one of those is coming here, either on Friday or potentially a game 7 if necessary on Sunday back here.
I mean, I think of Ilya Pettersson coming down on that 2-on-1, which I thought he did really well to help create. And thank God he did what he did, Matt. He did not pass the puck. He shot. And
did he ever load up the shot as well? That was quite a big release. And I wonder whether that's because not everything is
not natural
right with him.
It's just not natural. He's overthinking everything. Glad he took the shot. I think him at his best, that is in the top corner without a doubt, because there was space there.
Hockey stat cards had him as the best forward for the Canucks last night by the analytics.
He was active. We noticed him. I mean, that's great. Still no bottom line. No. Super concerning, but thank God he was. And I said this going in. I would take a game 2 performance. Remember I said that yesterday? It's like, at least, even though completely snake bitten, blocked all those shots were blocked, at least we noticed him in game 2. And I
missing open nets.
Yeah, that was sort of a milder version in game 5 of what game 2 was for him. He was involved. He was noticeable. Still not vintage Pettersson, obviously.
Well, let me ask you again. Is it time for Lotto Line? We saw more of it last night. Is it time for Lotto Line fully, or?
I'm willing to entertain that thought at this point. Yeah. I'm willing to start the game as lotto line. And if you have a ton of success, you could go back to spreading the wealth to maintain leads and stuff. But to make sure that you get out in front and maybe even try to get a multi-goal lead, dare to dream.
Or at the very least, tell Andrew Burnett, we're coming with our best here.
Yeah.
So whatever you want to do in terms of match, bring it, because we're loading up our best line, and then we're coming with Lindholm, Bluger, and Joshua, who I thought were better last night after a mostly quiet games 2 through
what that does
four,
is
notwithstanding the overtime winner.
It creates a very toothless fourth line.
Indeed.
Of Suter, Mikheyev.
But Blake, it's already toothless. It's already toothless. I mean, they knew they needed another winger. They tried to get another winger. Gensel was too expensive. Even looked at Zucker, decided against it.
Did you see Tyler Toffoli's goal last night for the Jets, who were eliminated? But I mean, Tyler Toffoli just rips a puck. I mean,
so you knew you were short a winger. Here we are, 5 games in. Nils Höglander, 0 points. Ilya Mikheyev was much better last night, 0 points. Pius Suter, 1 point. Sam Lafferty, 0 points. Phil DiGiuseppe, 1 point. And you don't have anyone else you can go to either. That's the other thing. That's the other thing that we wondered about at the trade deadline when no depth was brought in. Went, oh, okay. So your 13th forward is, we thought it might be DiGiuseppe at the time, but it's turned out to be, well, it's not even Vasilas Podkolzin, because Tocchet is talking about him going back to the Abbotsford Canucks for their second round AHL Calder Cup playoff series against Ontario, just so he can get some playing time. So they are quite thin in the forward ranks, particularly on the wings.
Suter hit another post last night.
He sure did.
He's got 2 posts in the series, I think, at least.
I think so.
He's been snake bitten.
Yeah, he sure has.
And he's got to bear it.
Here's
grade A chances too.
Here's the thing. He's not too dissimilar to Mikheyev.
No.
They just don't have the hands to finish at a high rate. That's what makes them middle or bottom 6 forwards.
And we're starting to see why Suter languished in the free agent pool, given his career stats are very good. I think they see that, you get something out of them, but when you need them the most, maybe you're not. If they're your fourth line wingers, I think you're okay with that.
And what happened
when you try to promote them
to the Sam Lafferty we saw early on in the season?
Yeah, or even like earlier in the series, I thought Lafferty was decent in game 1.
Yeah.
There was a snippet last night of that.
Guys, I think you see players that are feeling the nerves. When you're not a top line player that's used to have, at any level, the true top players in the Vancouver Canucks at their junior level, maybe elsewhere in the NHL, they've had responsibility heaped on them. They know what that feels like. A guy like Sam Lafferty, he's maybe playing out there to not screw up. And that's a tough place to play when you're playing in the I hope I don't screw this up mode. So but truth of the matter is there is no white knight from the bottom 6 that's going to come up and help Elias Pettersson.
No.
And that's why the lotto line might be the way to go, because at least Elias Pettersson's playing with guys that are thinking on his level, have his skill level, and maybe that's the best way to use him at this point.
There's no X factor coming down from the press box.
There's no X factor on this team, period. I don't think they're getting unsuspecting contributions from anybody outside of maybe Nikita Zadorov.
Been teasing Blake about Vasilas' X factor going into this series. Now, granted, mine is doing nothing as well.
That's right.
Philip Roenick. Zadorov is the X factor, right?
I guess.
I think we got to give it to Big Z. He's got 2 of their 4 even strength goals in the last 4 games.
For sure. But I thought Zadorov was boom or bust in playoffs. He was either going to be super costly,
a lot of
but
boom.
he's been boom.
A lot of boom.
I don't love his penalty, but for the most part, it's boom.
Good boom. Here's Rick Tocchet on Big Boom.
Hell of a goal. I think he's played well every game. He's got a lot of passion. You can tell he's played playoff games before, and he wants to be a difference maker.
He sure does have passion. And I got to admit, I'm a little bit worried about that passion vis-a-vis some of the comments he made about officiating last night. And particularly the Dakota Joshua hit on Luke Evangelista of the Nashville Predators. Incidentally, did you see the tweet Murph had that Evangelista grew up as a Leafs fan and his first jersey was a Luke Schenn jersey, and there's pictures of him running around in a Luke Schenn jersey, and now they're teammates. And hey, Schenn came out for victorious Tyson Berry last night. That was kind of a ballsy move.
Fabro there too. Yeah, they brought all
a lot of BC.
Block.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and Shen sick, by the way, so he might draw back in. We'll see.
Yes.
Yeah.
Here's Big Z on the officiating, and specifically Evangelista making himself vulnerable for that Joshua Boarding penalty.
It's NHL playoffs. Every person on the ice should be sharp, not just the players. I don't know what Dakota's supposed to do. He's back checking, finish the guy. The kid's been dodging the hits for 5 games straight. Bad income will happen. You got to protect yourself. It's a men's league. I mean, trying to find the worst who don't get fined $25,000 here, but everybody's out. I think, like I said, it's obviously the players responsible for what they do on the ice, but also there's a few other people on the ice. They have to be responsible for it too. And it's a Stanley Cup playoffs. It can happen.
I would like to think or hope that he stopped just short of the line with NHL referees. But you may remember the barrage of penalties that the Vancouver Canucks were assessed in the games following Tyler Myers' harsh criticism of NHL referees. I believe it was the Winnipeg game, Grady, in March.
Yes.
The one where Demko left and Myers said something along the lines of felt like we were playing 2 teams out there, something like that.
Yep.
We know how these NHL officials operate.
Very thin
the
skin.
Egos are massive.
Yeah.
The skin is thin. And they protect the fraternity as well. We've also come to see.
And I don't love the parallel of Stefan Auger as well. That, of course, trailed back to a game versus Nashville.
Right.
Burroughs said Burroughs was embarrassing him in Nashville.
I think Zadorov stopped short of crossing the line. I think that there is a line with this group of officials is despicable. They just, it's not too different in this business. You know, when young people get in this business, oh my God, you know, all these comments, the inbox, the Twitter, blah, blah, you got 2 choices. Read them and ignore, or don't listen. I would like to think that the NHL officials could rise to that standard. You know, ignore the noise, call the game, call the rule book, not interpretations thereof. Again, it's not a suggestion manual. It is a rule book. Ferraro used to always say, you know, we call the rules for 82 games, then we get to the Stanley Cup playoffs, and for some reason, standard change. I would like to think all of that works and works as it should in Game 6.
Considering a baseball umpire just threw out a manager who didn't say anything. It tells you how...
Well, that's what I'm worried about, Blake.
Incidentally, we do...
that Zadorov breathes on someone in Game 6 and gets 2 because they heard what he said and they're evening up the score.
We do mock the NHL fines sometimes. You heard there. He didn't want to write a check for 25 grand. Yeah, they might make millions per year, but they got, 25 grand's a lot of dough.
Yeah. And also, mention this on the postgame pod. Elliot Friedman's in the second intermission and just says, matter of factly, well, if you're Vancouver, you have to expect that you're going to get called for a penalty because
how bad is that?
The follow through from, was it Suter?
Yeah.
Into the face of, was it Barry? Which could have been a high sticking.
But again, if we're calling it by the rules,
right.
that in the rules, there's a carve out for that very, very thing.
So anyways, we'll see who the officials are. And, for the most part, I haven't had a lot of criticism of the officiating in this series.
No.
In fact, I think it's been pretty good.
Yeah.
And I think it's walked a fair line between letting them play and calling what needs to be called. The other thing I'll say, of course, 2 different referees, each and every. I think the standard from Game 1 through Game 5 has been pretty consistent as well.
The glaring one I saw last night was a haul down of Pettersson along the end boards there in the
Well, I thought the
third
first
period.
Yeah.
He's hauled down. I mean, a no call. It was right when the fans were up in arms too.
Yes, I saw that as well.
Yeah.
I thought the first Miller penalty, the hook on Carrier.
Well, that's a hook.
Yeah?
That's a hook. Yeah, and it's a silly one too. He's got another teammate with him.
Thought it was a smidge soft.
He's got a teammate with him. There's no need for him to get his stick up there. It was silly.
Anyways, we'll see. Well, and the Zadorov penalty you have to call, right? And then
he had words for Forsberg going to was it Forsberg he cross-checked?
Yes.
He had some words for it. You could read lips pretty easily with
well,
Zadorov
I thought
in the box.
I thought Forsberg sold it, no doubt, but two things can be true at the same time.
Yeah.
Penalty was sold. It was also a needless cross-check that you're just asking for trouble.
Also, at his size, lay a shoulder into his back. You're probably not going to get an interference penalty if you're just kind of boxing out the guy with your shoulder a little bit. I'd be more likely to endorse that than the minute that stick goes horizontal, you're probably going to go to the box.
Yeah, no, that's kind of how it operates in the NHL. Wanted to get to this from J-Pat. We talked about the lack of scoring from the wingers. So many ways to look at the reason the Canucks are struggling to score. Most felt winger depth was an issue much of the season. Now the last 4 games, Brock Besser is the only Canucks winger to put a puck in the net. He has 4 of the team's last 8 goals. Of course, JT Miller, Elias Lindholm, the game winner, and Nikita Zadorov with 2.
Probably should have had one more
other
last night too.
Goal scorers. Yes, absolutely. Good news today for Vancouver Canucks captain Quinn Hughes. He is one of the 3 finalists for the James Norris Trophy awarded to the league's best defenseman. He is joined by Roman Josi, Nashville Predators defenseman. So you got 2 of the 3 Norris finalists in this series. And of course, the sublime Cale Makar of the Colorado Avalanche, which, did you see his end-to-end goal the other night?
Oh, I thought you were going to talk about the hit he took last. I thought he was going to have cardiac arrest on the ice last night. He was hit so hard. He was struggling so badly on the bench. I honestly thought he'd have to leave the game. He was paced.
He's got some time here.
Yeah, that's the good news.
Especially with Dallas and Vegas tied at 2-2. But you saw the Bobby Orr-esque goal the other night? Good God. Incredible. I mean, there are very few defensemen in the history of the league who can score that goal. We think it's going to be close. Our Frank Seravalli and others think Hughes is going to win it. He outpointed Makar. The Canucks won their division. We're right there at the top of the standings all season long.
Makar's stats greatly lean on his presence on the ice with Nathan McKinnon. Hughes is not as stapled to good performance with
and Hughes' defensive metrics were excellent this year as well. So we think he's going to win. But of course, Makar has the reputation. And I mean, let's face it, if you're building a team tomorrow and you can take any defenseman in the league, I think most people are picking Cale Makar first. So Hughes has a couple of things to overcome here, but I suspect he is going to lift the James Norris Trophy and be the first Vancouver Canucks defenseman.
But there's weird things. They also get sentiments like this of, I think Makar is going to win a lot of Norrises. This was a great season by Hughes.
Yeah,
this is a good time for us to give it to somebody else because Makar is going to win more.
Right? Fair. I often felt NBA voters did that with the MVP and Michael Jordan. You know, Barkley had a great year in Phoenix. Really got in shape, shot the 3-pointer. You know, Malone, Utah were so good front to back this year.
He's got bored of MJ.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Magic. Look what he did for the Lakers this year. I think there were 3 MVPs that should have been Jordan that wound up being Malone, Magic, and Barkley because of that voter fatigue. I kid you about Podkolzin, but is it the right move sending him to Abbey for this second round series against the Ontario Reign? It begins tonight. That's tonight.
It begins tonight.
Right. Yeah. In Ontario. Game 3 is back here in Abbotsford, but the first 3 are down in California. Is it the right move just to get him some ice time here? He hasn't played since the final week.
I'm of 2 minds of it. I mean, certainly he has to play. I mean, I would be tempted, given the winger thing, to slot him into Game 6 in Nashville. So if you're not going to, if he's dead set, and it does seem like talk is dead set against using him, just too young, too green to play in this series. So if you're not planning on using him, I guess he's not using him, then absolutely that's the right play. But I wonder if it would be helpful to get an exuberant big body out on the road. And this has nothing to do with my freaking X Factor
Blake Price
choice.
still won't take the L.
No, well, it's not an L. It's a separate conversation.
Well, it's not a W. Not a T.
Well, we don't know if
either.
he can't play. Put him in the damn lineup. What are you losing? You're not losing anything.
You're losing DiGiuseppe's penalty killing.
If it's DiGiuseppe, we'll take out Lafferty.
Penalty killing was
Take out Lafferty.
Yeah.
You know, like these guys so ingrained in the lineup, and we just
Lafferty's the right shot. He's got the speed. He can play the middle left.
Russians love to play off the off wing. But on the right side.
Right. Where do the Winnipeg Jets go from here? They're out in 5 games to the Colorado Avalanche.
Hemorrhaged goals.
And the best defensive team in the regular season gives up 28 in 5 games. The all-world Vezina Trophy winning goaltender Connor Hellebuyck, because he is going to win the Vezina over Thatcher Demko, gets absolutely ventilated, not for the first time in the postseason, albeit for the first time after signing that big, long extension with the Jets, who doubled down last summer on their current construction of the team, even with Rick Bowness criticizing the group at the end of last season. You remember how harsh Bowness was on this group. But Mark Scheifele's $8.5 million extension kicks in next season. Connor Hellebuyck's $8.5 million extension kicks in next year. Hellebuyck is 30. Scheifele is 31. There was talk heading into last offseason that the Jets may trade one or both of them because could they afford them? Did they want to stay? Did Winnipeg just have to change up the group and the composition of its roster? So I ask you, where do the Winnipeg Jets go next? The other thing, trading the assets out for Monahan and Toffoli, Blake, it gets you 5 games. I mean, that is
always the risk. That's why guys don't take out their wallet at the deadline.
That is the scary tale of every deadline, right? Who's going to load on up only to watch the team flame out?
Every year there's a scary 1 or 2 series that leads you to believe, like, what are we doing this for 82 games for anyway? Boston, sets the league on fire last year. Boom, they're out. At JFresh Hockey on Twitter, goodbye to the Winnipeg Jets, a balanced offensive team. Till they weren't. They played elite team defense till it fell apart.
Till they didn't.
And was backstopped by elite goaltending until it wasn't.
Yeah.
Like, everything you knew the Jets to be disappeared.
Just like that.
Just like that.
Earlier in my career, I covered some of these series back east with some terrific teams, Ottawa Senators teams that would go in the Stanley Cup playoffs and then play completely out of character and lose to a lesser seed.
I can see teams that are flashy offensively. That doesn't track in the playoffs as well. Because when you are balanced,
Washington once upon a time, right?
But this Jets team had it all buttoned down.
Right.
Good defense, good goaltending. Like, what do we say in the playoffs?
Yeah.
Like, shut them down. That's how you win. They just couldn't. So in that regard, Matt, I don't know what you do. Do you try to run it back one more year and reproduce?
I mean, in some cases, so you're going to have to do some further construction on your blue line because you got 3 UFAs there. And in fact, Brendan Dillon has been a guy who has been mentioned as a potential Vancouver Canuck, a New West native. He's one of the 3 UFA defensemen. For the most part, you look at their team and, I could make a case for running it back. They got $74 million committed. So they got a little bit of money to play with. They don't particularly have, Perfetti's an RFA, but not with arb rights. So you're not looking at any super expensive RFA that you have to deal with. You're going to need to, round out your defense, backup goaltender. If you're not bringing Brossoit back, I wouldn't suspect that Toffoli or Monahan are back. You have been a exceptional draft and developed team. You're without 1st and 3rd round picks this year because of the trades. You're without a 2nd round pick next year, 2nd and 4th next year because of the trades. But I would think that Cheveldayoff feels good about his staff's ability to find some players here over the next couple of drafts.
Further development of Perfetti and some others too.
The further upside that they have, and guys like Perfetti. I think Velarde may have
Yep.
more than what we've seen as well. Kupari, there's some others on that team that could improve, but boy, what for a team that I thought, and I picked Winnipeg in 5, dominated Colorado in the regular season. Great depth up front after the trades for Toffoli and Monahan. Morrissey, and then it's kind of Morrissey and a cast of misfit toys on defense, but there's some good players there as well.
But a great warning about regular season record too. They demolished the Avs in the regular season and then couldn't do anything to them in this playoff run. So if the Canucks get past the Preds and face the Oilers, I don't want to hear about the 4-0 regular season record against the Oilers.
Oh, you're going to hear about it.
Well, it means nothing. It means 0.
Well, you can have that take, but you're going to hear about it.
From who?
Well, from this guy.
Okay. All right.
Hockey heads, the Daily Face-Off Playoff Parlay Challenge is here. Each game day, answer 4 questions, pick the winning team, guess if points will be over or under, predict the first goal, choose the highest scoring period. Daily winners, gift cards. Round winners, cash. Play now. Games.dailyfaceoff.com. Incidentally, the Vancouver Canucks travel day, no practice.
Mm-hmm.
And Rick Tocchet availability at 7 p.m. Central Time. That's a group that just wanted to get out of town and answer no more questions about Game 5.
Yeah. And get a sleep
I'm not
in.
sure how many people are going to be there for the 7 p.m. availability in Nashville.
In some ways, Matt, it's actually
almost like a full team day off, including media.
But it's courteous because it does give the media time to get to Nashville.
Well,
in some ways, it's courteous.
And in other ways, courteous would have been media availability here and then fly out. But I don't think they wanted to do that.
That's another stop on the way to the airport, I guess. Yeah.
Right.
I don't mind that. I honestly don't mind it.
Let's get to today's menu. It is brought to you by Ben Moss Jewelers. Proudly Canadian owned and operated with a history dating back more than 100 years, 5 locations in British Columbia, including Willowbrook and Coquitlam Center. Committed to customer satisfaction, you can check out the large selection of Canadian mined diamonds, lab-grown diamonds. These mined diamonds are available with payment plans to suit your needs. For more information, check out benmoss.com. Ben Moss, for the love of jewelry. We talked to Frank Corrado coming up here on, many of the relevant topics, his thoughts on Game 5 between the Predators and the Canucks, Quinn Hughes and how he's managing through what many suspect is an injury, the goaltending starter for Game 6. Of course, that becomes the question here again.
Yep.
Or is it cut and dry for you, Shelovs?
It's pretty cut and dry for me, Shelov.
Yes, it is for me too. Goalie guy Grady, Shelovs, without a doubt, without a flinch.
Yeah.
Okay. Shots on goal, power play, Mikheyev, lots of topics to cover here with Frank Corrado. And Frank Seravalli joins us in the Nation Network studio, NHL insider from the Daily Face-Off and the Frankly Speaking podcast. He is rolling with the Vancouver Canucks. He has chosen to cover the Vancouver Canucks. Of all the series that are out there, a national guy, he's chosen to cover the Canucks. And he tells us if they make it through, he's going to ride with them.
Casey DeSmith
Through
update
into
too.
the second round. Yes. Yeah. Casey DeSmith update. He tells you what he believes the injury is and where Casey DeSmith is at with that injury. All right, buddy. It is time for our Bet365 bet of the day. And this segment brought to you by Bet365, proud partner of Sekeres Price. Beginning of the playoffs, a few days before, our buddy Steve Ewan from the province messaged me. He says, Matt, give me a sleeper fantasy hockey guy, playoff pool guy in the Stanley Cup playoffs. And I said, Steve, I'm not sure if Wyatt Johnson qualifies as a sleeper. But given that he's often the number 3 center for Dallas, I think he's going to get pretty favorable matchups. He's a pretty good goal scorer. He's got pretty good wingers there because the Dallas talent offensively. And the big centerman, 4 points through 4 games. He's been a story as the Stars have clawed back into that series, winning both games in Dallas. They're back at home. Could continue to get some of those favorable matchups, not to mention last change. Going to take a bigger swing here. Wyatt Johnston to score 2 points game 5 Wednesday. Paying a plus 340 on the money line.
Going to Connor McDavid points in their game.
Okay, that's cheating.
Versus the LA Kings. Hey,
Tell me it's 3.
3.
Well, they only scored 1 the last game, so
it's a day that ends in Y. McDavid will get 3 points. Plus 215 on Connor McDavid.
3 points is only plus 215.
It's Connor McDavid. Literally, before breakfast.
Open an account with Bet365 today and bet on a huge range of markets. So whatever the sport, whatever the moment, it's never ordinary. At Bet365, use code VANBONUS. Altogether, all one word. Frank Corrado coming up next.
The Vancouver Canadians are back at the Nat. Catch fireworks, giveaways, and Friday nooners all spring and summer long. Get your tickets at CanadiansBaseball.com. Hey, you. No, not you. You. Are you an owner-operator? Do you have a fleet of trucks or cars? Well, CalPro Plus might be the dedicated tire program just for you.
Free program includes exclusive deals and savings, price match guarantee, flexible financing, and preferred pricing on everything you drive.
Also, you get a dedicated member support line. That means that you can get questions answered. Also, they'll source and recommend the right tire for you, your application, and your budget.
Cal Tire's network of 260 plus stores are here to help so you can focus on the road ahead. Sign up for free at calproplus.com. Our next guest brought to you by the Arnold Palmer Design Whistler Golf Club. Counting down to opening day, May 10th. We're inside of 10 days here. And the club reminds organizers of groups of 12 or more, it's time to lock in those times for the 2024 season. The prime times are filling up fast, so you're going to want to reserve that spot. And just for doing so, you, the organizer, plays for free. Whistler Golf Club takes care of the rest. Tell us about your group, whistlergolf.com/groups. And, of course, check out the spring preparations. The Bears, the course wintered famously. I'm wearing my Whistler Golf quarter zip. Check the social out at Whistler Golf.
My son had a POW day the other day at the top, and then we're talking like days away from Whistler Golf Club.
Amazing. Here he is, former Vancouver Canuck TSN hockey analyst Frank Corrado, who was spending some time with our boy Farhan Lalji.
Yeah.
Yesterday.
That was a pleasant surprise last night. Farhan coming up to the boardroom at TSN Studio 9 to watch the end of the Canucks game after doing the CFL draft. So very talented guy, that Farhan Lalji. I think he actually got back for his son's track meet today.
Really? Yeah, he travels well.
Did he ever interview you as a Canuck?
Yes, I have a Farhan story.
Please bring it.
Safe for work? Do tell.
Yeah. I actually had a little beef with Farhan early on in my TSN Canucks
brilliant.
tenure, but I don't even know if he knows this. So, when I first got called up to play my first NHL game, long story short, there was a Russian player in Sudbury. His name was Andrei Kuchin. And he didn't use a cell phone or anything like that. So his agent, his North American agent, used to communicate to him through me because I lived 3 doors down from the kid, right? So this guy, he was based in Chicago. And so all year, I'd help, facilitate all this stuff. And I was playing for the Wolves. So, as a little thank you, he takes me out for dinner. And, then he texts me afterwards. He goes, okay, I'll see you at the game. I'm going to come, I'm going to watch the game, whatever. I go, actually, I just got called up to Vancouver. So, I won't see it tomorrow. And he went out and he tweeted something like, good things happen to good people. Congrats to at Frank Corrado 22, getting called up to the Vancouver Canucks. And I guess Farhan saw that that's an agent. That's a hockey agent, and tweeted, oh, this is from Frank Corrado's agent. I guess he's getting called up. And I had to throw a tweet out there right away. I'm like, this is not my agent. My agent is Joe Resnick. Because you can understand my situation. I have an agent. He's like, what is going on? You have a double agent? What is this? So, anyways, we cleared the air, but it was a little moment of trepidation before my first NHL recall. And Farhan thought he was getting the scoop, but he jammed me up a little bit. But it's all good now. We're over
it. Did Mr. Resnick?
I was going to say, was Resnick shook?
He called me. He was like, what is going on? Is there something I need to know?
Yeah, exactly.
Of course, I had to explain that situation, which was fun. Yeah.
What did you make of Game 5, Frank?
Man, like other games in this series, it could have gone either way. like the goaltending is still a story for a number of reasons, whether it's the injuries or the third string goalie playing well, Soros making some massive saves. It's a tight series, and what seems like it might be, low event at times, every once in a while there's a grade A and you're like, whoa, like that kind of, that came out of nowhere and it happened quick. But it's the margins for error right now in this series are very slim, and you can lose a game and not necessarily deserve to lose that game. And that's what makes this series so difficult right now. And, the one thing that maybe you want to look for from the Canucks is like, where's the game breakers? Like where's that? Like, cause that's what's really got to put you over the edge here in a series like this. You have them, you've seen it at times this year. There's some elite skill. Like there's more elite skill on Vancouver than there is on Nashville, but the game is kind of in this like murky, swampy middle right now where it just seems like it's really hard to kind of break through and get the upper hand for a long time.
Frank, we have a story right there. Pettersson on the 2-on-1 could extend the lead. It is on a tee for Elias Pettersson to erase all the bad karma, all the bad press that he's been getting, and it just catches the left shoulder of Soros. It was right there for him. I mean, honestly, the series is won if that goal goes in.
And you know what? I think for Pettersson, watching him last night, it's definitely not for a lack of effort. Like we've seen that throughout the series. It's almost like he's trying to do too much. But even early in that game, he goes to throw a big hit on Carrier. Like he takes the worst of it, but he's involved. He's engaged physically. Like he wants to do it. We're starting to see more signs of maybe he's going to be able to do it. But with the Miller line having been so consistent and basically been like the one constant that you can count on throughout this series, outside of, like Quinn Hughes has been like big moments have followed Quinn Hughes in this series, but like that Miller line's been really good. But you do need a little bit more. And I know like you can just tell he wants to do a little bit more. It looks like it's coming, and maybe it comes at the right time. Like maybe it happens on the road. But, I always found with whether it was myself or other guys, whether you're in a little bit of a rut or a tough spot, it can be a little bit of one step forward, two steps back. Like it doesn't just happen right away. And you can see he's trying to work through something. But I don't know. I felt like he was engaged in the games, especially physically last night.
Does he look injured to you? And specifically, does it look like a hand or wrist injury based on the way he is shooting?
Hughes or Pettersson?
Pettersson.
I always wonder about that with him, because like when a player is that good, that refined in their skill set, and then they can't really put it together, you have to start to wonder, okay, is there something, nagging this guy? I don't know, like if I feel like it's the wrist, because I watched one of the hits last night and I'm like, okay, why are you going down so easy there? Like you had the upper hand. It felt like, I don't know. I don't know why I felt like it wasn't necessarily the wrist. And I feel like that's the one we always come back to, but maybe at times it has been a groin. I don't know. It's hard to tell. Because even the way he skates, he's a good skater, but it's not exactly the prettiest stride you've ever seen.
I thought he looked faster last night, though. Ironically, I thought last night I noticed him break away on that 2-on-1 and separate a little bit.
Yeah, which is good. Like that, and that's the thing. Like when he kind of slows down to a crawl, he's regular, right? Mm-hmm. Like, and for me, it's not necessarily the high end speed; it's the shiftiness, like the evasiveness. That's where you see it. It's like that quick, fast twitch, explosive movement. And when he doesn't have that, he's kind of just another guy. But when he has that, he's able to create some separation. So that's one of the things that I'd kind of be looking for in the next game, and hopefully not 2 games.
And Lindholm's wrist is still bandaged up, and he's playing great.
Hey, they targeted, in Rick Tocchet's words, took runs at Quinn Hughes. I think it was a little gentler, the treatment last night. But how do you think he's going to hold up here now that we're going back to Nashville and playing at least 6?
I give him a lot of credit, man, and he's not wrong, because they have been taking runs at him. But like, is that a secret? Is that a surprise? The guy's one of the best defensemen in the NHL. He's probably going to win the Norris. You don't think that was one of the first things that was said in every pre-scout meeting that they had leading up to this series? Like, hit Hughes every single chance you have, and like the way he's been able to bounce back. And I go back 2 games ago. Like the plays that he made late in that game, under pressure at the offensive blue line, like incredible stuff to be able to do that and have that kind of poise under pressure, especially with the fact that, every time you've had the puck, essentially, someone's been coming to finish you, and you could start to hear the footsteps. I know I did when I played. I'm obviously not the player that Quinn Hughes was, but the footsteps start to get a little louder. And for him, it's almost like he hears the footsteps and he's like, I'm going to play through it. Like, I think he's a very resilient guy. And quite honestly, he probably has had to be for a long time. Like, he probably has never been the biggest guy. Like, he's never been the strongest guy. He's always had to push through this. It's not the first time that a team has said, let's finish our hits on Quinn Hughes every chance we have, because that's going to be the game plan on him forever. And it is for every top defenseman. But, even like anytime he gets the puck at the blue line, he still looks like he's got that shake and bake and he's dancing. And it's like, he's not dumbing it down for the sake of dumbing it down. He's still playing his game. And I think, what really sticks out to me is, as much as he's always, he has that flash, he does what the game requires. And I think that really goes a long way for his game and facilitating the rest of the team's game.
It's maybe too much to ask both special teams to be going like gangbusters at the same time, but the PK, I mean, they're making it look easy at times, and they finally do succumb and let in a goal. But the power play looks like they've never met each other in their entire lives.
But it's so strange. It's so like they just had power play goals. Like JT Miller just had one, and it seemed like it was such an easy recipe too, where you didn't have to overcook the puck. Like it was just, hey, let's roll it up on the half wall. Let's skate downhill. Let's take a shot. If it doesn't work, it gets blocked. Let's do it again, because maybe we're going to create a rebound. Maybe we're going to create a little opportunity at the net. Like Brock Besser's done a really good job all year, not just in the playoffs, but like being in that net front area, kind of sneaking in behind coverage, establishing body positioning. It's like, those little plays, those need to happen off shots and puck retrievals where you get people moving. Like you can't just, it's hard to just direct a puck down there and say, now we're going to make small little plays around the net. Like you need to open up some kind of coverage in that situation. But I don't know. I think when it comes to the power play, it comes down to like, let's get back to the basics, but they've been back to the basics so many times.
But it's like they fall in love with one thing.
Have to get basicer.
How can it be more basic than what they did in Nashville, where it was like JT Miller shot blocked?
They fall in love with one thing, and then they just do that,
right?
And there's never middle ground. Like it's just Elias Pettersson. Okay, it's just JT Miller shooting now. Yeah. It's just slap passing now. It's just Bo Horvat and the bumper. Like it's always just one thing. Like how about? You do a little bit of everything here, and
I'll give you a good example. Like, okay, so for me this year, covering Montreal a lot, I think a lot of people made a lot of Cole Caulfield not scoring, right? And Marty St. Louis talked about it. He said, and the power play was struggling as well. So you got the daily double there, and basically Marty said, well, listen, the power play doesn't revolve around Cole Caulfield. The power play revolves around all five players and having different looks. Now, Montreal's power play was not good. Cole Caulfield, he didn't have the season that maybe people expected. It was respectable at the end of it all. But I think the messaging there from a coach who played the game is very correct, that the power play can't just have one look. It can't just revolve around one guy. It has to have a few different things. Like I would love to see the bumper. Like I would love to see that bumper one-timer a little bit more. I would love to see, things open up through the seam. I like the Quinn Hughes one-timer. Like I want to see all these different elements, but if you're going to get hamstrung to one thing, teams are going to sniff it out. I think, Nashville does a really good job of blocking shots to begin with. And if they kind of know that there's going to be, one set play or, where everything's going to get worked off, they're coming straight out. Like they will come straight out onto the half walls and make themselves look big. But I think when that happens, that's when you open yourself up to plays low underneath that. But it does start with a shot mentality first.
I might have asked you this last week, but 21, 18, 12, 20, 20. Shot totals for the Vancouver Canucks through 5 games by game. 91 through 5, averaging 18 shots per game. Can they win this series with so few shots on goal?
They can, because they've gotten this far, and they're essentially on the brink of it. It's just Nashville's a weird team. Like the way they kind of suppress, the quantity of chances is quite interesting. But I would say that just because the quantity of chances and shots hasn't been there, like there has been quality. Like, it's funny watching the game last night. Farhan walks into the room and he goes, "Okay, what's the story?" And I'm like, "Okay, well, Soros has made some big saves." And he goes, "Well, how can that be the case? There's only 12 shots for the Canucks at this point." I'm like, "Well, I'm telling you, man, he's made some key saves." And then shortly afterwards, Zadorov scores, and that's one that Soros is kind of swimming in his own net. But I think if you're still generating the quality, if you're still generating the slot shots, if it's still goal mouth situations where you're jamming away at pucks, you don't need to waste them. Like you don't need to waste them on Soros on the outside. Like I don't think with a goalie like that. You don't need to throw junk at the net and say, let's just go volume, because I don't know how many times have we seen really good goalies make 40 saves in a game. And it's like, okay, you made 40 saves. How many of those were of, really good quality? So I do think they can do it. Of course, they would probably like to get a little more as far as quantity to the net, but as long as the quality is still there, I'm not necessarily concerned.
Yeah, they got scoring chances. They got more than enough scoring chances to win that hockey game and to score 2, 3, maybe even 4 goals. And it's just not. Is that in their head at all? Do you think that that they can't score enough goals right now? I mean, it doesn't seem like it, but
it has to be. I think when you're in a series, you think of, okay, what do we need to do now in order to win this series? And like scoring goals, obviously scoring goals, but like it hasn't come easy to them. And I think that's where the star player kind of the star power game breaker type player really comes into play, and that's Elias Pettersson, and the power play obviously is a big part of that. But I don't know, like I think. The goalie has a big part in that, because you'll take a look at the pre-scout before, you take a look at, there's some video clips playing in the dressing room and you see all the saves or all the goals this guy's making. And you're like, man, it's tough to beat that guy. And I think it's become one of those things now where offense is not coming easy for this team. It's not coming easy for other teams around the league. Like, it's not just the Vancouver Canucks that are going through this. And like, this is one of the hurdles that happens in the playoffs. And they gotta find a way, because when they were at their best, as much as they're a very good defensive team, when they were at their best this year, the goals came a little easier, and you hope you didn't waste them all in the early portion of the season.
I want to challenge both of you on this notion of quality chances, or enough scoring chances, and it's the quality over the quantity. Guys, Soros has an .879 save percentage in this series. The Vancouver Canucks have 2 power play goals. They were both in the same game. They have 4 even strength goals in the last 4 games, 2 of them by Nikita Zadorov. If they're putting 10 more shots per night on goal, or 12, something that's closer to 28-30, which is roughly what you expect in an NHL game. You guys telling me one more ain't going in? And this series isn't over now, or they're in overtime last night?
I'd like your chances. I'd like your chances of one more going in for sure. But it's easier said than done to just fire 10 up when it's gone the way it has.
No,
it's not just a one game thing. That's we've seen how hard it is for them to pepper the net. It's just it's not easy. Whether it's the game where Nashville blocks 35 shots, or there's going to be games where Nashville carries the play offensively. It's harder. Like everyone's accounted for. Like every matchup is pretty dialed in, and the goaltender matchup is no different. But those numbers probably don't tell the whole story with Soros. Like those are very, very pedestrian numbers for a good goalie who had struggled this year, but really turned his game around towards the end.
And the thing I'd be worried about, Frank, is he was really pedestrian through 4 games. Like, he was good last night. You might be now running into a good, hot UC Soros, which would be pretty scary at the very least in Game 6, back on home ice, but potentially in a winner-take-all Game 7 as well. Let's go to the crease on the other end. What have you made of young Shelovs, and who would you start in Game 5?
I'd be going right back with the kid. I thought he was really good. Like you talk about stories in that game last night. Soros was a story, but I think the bigger story was Shelov's and how well he played, especially in the early parts of that game. Like Nashville was making a lot of plays from below the goal line up to the slot area. And those are tough for defensemen. I know firsthand. but they're tough for goalies too, because now you're constantly having to move your head like behind you to in front of you. You're checking, certain sight lines. And I thought he handled that all really, really well. For a young goalie, it seems like the moment is not too big for him. Regardless of what you think of that second goal, like there is some traffic in front of him. And I don't know. I like the way the team feels when he's in the net. Not to say that it's not the same when Casey DeSmith is in the net, and of course Thatcher Demko's in a different ballpark. But I think this guy, like we've seen it at the men's worlds when Latvia won bronze. Like he likes the bigger moment, and his game doesn't make you feel like you're missing something when he's in there. I liked his game.
Hey Frank, did you hear him after Game 4 when he was asked about whether he was nervous playing in the Stanley Cup playoffs? And he said no, it was. He said he wasn't that nervous. He's had experience before, back home in the domestic league.
The domestic league, the Latvian domestic league. Is that what he said?
Yeah, he said it's the same thing. It's the same thing.
You know why?
The domestic league before the World Championships.
You know why he said that, right? Because there's a good chance in that league, if you don't play well, you're probably not getting paid.
Oh, yeah.
That's when the stakes are really high. The Latvian domestic league. We got to get eyes on this thing. I saw it. Like I was in Riga, so I got to see a little bit of it. That's awesome.
So you were in Riga. You're the one. Okay.
Penalties have not been a huge. Like it's not like the Canucks are handing 7 power plays to the Preds on a nightly basis. It's just sometimes the timing of these power plays is just seemingly gutted the Canucks, and I don't know that I loved any of the penalties taken. Is that something that you need to take head on, or if you're giving up 4 power plays, that's just kind of standard and not worthy of addressing if you're worth talking?
4 power plays in the playoffs feels like it's on the higher end based on what we see. What we see in the other games, it's like last night. There's a game where there's like 1 power play for one team, 3 for the other. Like 4 is high, but I don't know. Vancouver is playing a very hard, rugged style of game. Like and you know what? I give them a lot of credit because they identified something with their decor that they wanted to do. They wanted the big tree stump defenseman who can move fairly well and can move the puck fairly well. And they've been like really mean, really punishing. And if everyone's going to play that style, you're going to be susceptible to a little more of the penalties. I saw what Zadorov said after the game about, the officiating. And it's like, I don't think that's exclusive to this series. Like, I just think there's so much urgency with the way all these teams are playing right now. And, guys are towing the line, and refs are going to miss things. Refs are going to call things. Like there's been a ton of missed calls in other series as well. So it's for sure it's going to be a point of focus to make sure you are disciplined and not give Nashville opportunities on the power play. But it's not just exclusive to here. What interests me about the Nashville power play, and I don't know if you guys noticed this, Roman Josi must be the only defenseman in the NHL who accepts the drop pass on the breakout instead of initiating the drop pass, which is wild. He's got to be the only one who someone else drops it to Josi, and then he's the one who carries it in, and of course he carries it right to the net. He ends up scoring that goal. But that was one of my big takeaways. Like it has a different look because it's a defenseman, but he's pretty good at it.
I don't mind it. I mean, if Hughes was in that role, Hughes has got such good handle of the puck. Him weaving into the offensive zone, to me, that's not a bad idea. I mean, who's better at holding on to the puck? I mean,
yeah, Hughes could do it. He's definitely capable. But yeah, it's an interesting look they have.
Indeed. Ilya Mikheyev, your old Leaf teammate.
I missed him by a couple years, but I saw him a lot.
He was there.
No, I saw him a lot though. Yeah,
he misses his old self too.
Is he ever going to score?
No kidding.
Is he?
That's a great question.
Because he was better last night, Frank. He was active. He was in the mix.
It's not the first time we've said that either. There was games in the final 10 where he was very active. Still nothing.
Yeah, I know. This is the thing that frustrated everyone in Toronto. It's like this guy, because of his speed, because of his willingness to kind of drive the net and take pucks wide and bring it right across the middle of the ice. Like he's very willing to do that, but man, he cannot finish. You know what would benefit him? If he could play the game 5 to 10% slower, I think he would have a better chance of finishing. Like he's so fast. It's such a frantic pace, everything he wants to do, and that's what makes him a good player. But ultimately, when it comes down to like making plays and finishing, it's just there's a little bit of like a slowdown that needs to happen, and I don't see it with him. And that's probably because he knows like you got paid. Your role is to be very fast, and like if he's not doing that, does he feel like he's doing his job? But this is like I watched Mikheyev here in Toronto because I was doing the games on radio and covering the team very closely. Breakaway after breakaway, right into the pad, right along the ice into the pad, like miss the net completely. Like this is not something new. Like I think if you were expecting him to score a lot, you were going to be let down. But you kind of hope that there was a little more than what he's given you now, especially considering the chances he's getting. Like you guys mentioned, like there are some better chances, some better opportunities, but that's always the case with him. Like
you want to slow it down to like Kuznetsov on a penalty shot slow. Like, is that what you're talking about? That slow?
That's crazy. Yeah, that's
that's
ridiculous. Remote control controller.
It
slowed
worked.
down. Yeah, I know it worked. It works a lot, and that's the frustrating thing because if it didn't work and he would just rifle it into someone's pads, he would look like a goof. But it works a lot, so good for him.
I liked somebody tweeted last night, love the speed and intensity of the Stanley Cup playoffs.
That's right. Yeah.
Frank, you're the best. Thank you for this. We'll catch up next week.
Okay, guys, thanks.
Hey, everybody, if you're enjoying what you're seeing here, then follow along with Sekeres Price on YouTube. I promise more content coming.
The kids call it subscribe on YouTube.
Well, how about liking it?
Do that as well. Smash it right now. In a season like this, you never want to miss a single second of what's happening on the ice, and you want to be around your fellow fans, right? Well, Greta Bar YVR at 50 West Cordova, the perfect spot to do so. Hey, if you've got tickets, a great place to pre and post. They've got drink specials every single day. And if you don't have tickets, well, stick around and soak up the atmosphere with all your fellow fans, play all the great video games and air hockey, great air hockey set up as well at Greta Bar YVR. We'll see you there, 50 West Cordova.
Northlands Golf Course. Download the free app and book tee times with a touch of your thumb. And while you're on course, open the app for hole-by-hole GPS and track your score. 6 to 90-day reservations. Jump the queue. Lock in your date for $10 per player booking fee. Limited daily availability. Check it all out. golfnorthlands.com. Joined now in the Nation Network studio by Frank Seravalli, NHL insider of the Daily Faceoff and the Frankly Speaking podcast before he jets out of town. It's good having you here.
Great to be in Van.
And you're going to roll with the Canucks should they win this series?
Look, I was all in on the Canucks before the season started, so I'm sticking with them.
Yeah.
They need to do their end of that business.
What did you make of last night?
In an odd way, I thought it was their most complete game of the series.
Yeah, I agree.
They had plenty of chances, great looks. Rick Tocchet was thrilled with their first period, and rightfully so. And I don't even think they let their foot off the gas in the third. There's a couple untimely goals against and a little bit of sloppy play. Just think about some of the attention to detail required to win playoff games. You can't ice the puck carelessly. You can't take stupid penalties. I mean, you smash a bunch of those things together, and a desperate Nashville team that came into this saying, we know they're not going to want to fly back to Nashville. Well, a lot of motivation for them too.
You think of the chances there when they're up 1-0, extending the lead, right? Like if they extend the lead to 2-0, I don't think Nashville comes back. But it's just so hard to do so in the playoffs, right?
And guess what? Here's the other part of this that no one really talked about after the game. UC Soros had his best game of the series by a wide margin.
A goal he probably wants to have back, but overall, yes, you're right.
Well, the goal was horrendous. Yeah. And he acknowledged after the game and chatting with him that he was so concerned about the Canucks making an east to west pass that he was already playing that instead of the shot, because he's probably thinking there's no way Zadorov is putting that top cheddar at that angle. And so he was caught in the middle. But if you take that goal away, he made some seriously good saves. And more than that, some really lucky things. Like there was a couple cross ice plays. There was one that Soros was swimming way out of his net and the puck somehow got caught up in his pads and squirted the other way instead of through the crease. Things like that, you remember that you're like, oh man, he was really good and lucky. But for a guy that entered the the game with an 857 save percentage in the series, he was entirely gettable all the way until game 5.
Did the Canucks put too much emphasis on this and not wanting to fly back to Nashville? Did they play tighter as the game went along?
I didn't see that. I thought it was fascinating, though, that Ian Cole said it. Ian Cole is, love him, hate him, whatever you think of him, he's a great conscience. And he said, we've got to grow up. Essentially, that was the message. We need to mature here, because if we're worried about whether or not we have to fly across the continent again, who cares? He goes, I don't care if we win in double OT in game 7, whatever it takes, you've got to win the series. And, you know, I thought it was a point really well made today by Ian McIntyre when he said, if you told this Canucks team before the season started that they'd have an opportunity to close out round 1 in game 6 in Nashville, who cares about flying across the country to do it? Yeah,
they would have taken that for sure. Yeah. I mean, you leave that to the fans. The fans can say, hey, I want Hughes to get better and have a week off and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, you have to be able to roll the punch, like trying to pick your opponent in the closing weeks of the regular season.
Yeah, good luck. Never works.
Yeah. So the challenge, where were you on the goal challenge? Was there room to get that one back?
No, I think what's looming, of course, is the penalty.
Yeah.
And sure. I don't think you can afford to be wrong. Even as pedestrian as the Predators power play was this series, you know, of course, prior to getting a big power play goal, you know, I don't think I would have challenged.
Yeah, it's a big punishment.
Yeah. I know you haven't been entirely impressed with the aesthetics of this series. Game 5 was better. But
Game 5 was that's as good and entertaining of a no-score game that you're going to have heading into the third period.
Is it just this playoff series that has the lower than regular shot totals? Like, to me, they've been more exciting than their shot totals belie.
What do the Canucks have? 90 shots or 91 shots through 5 games?
91.
Look, I think it's fair to say that their low shot total has painted a picture of what this series has looked like. Now, have there been exciting moments, like exciting flurries? The only interesting part of game 4 was the last 3 minutes.
Yeah.
Really, the only interesting part of game 1 was the third period. Like if you, and look, this is playoff hockey. Like, I'm not slagging it. Every series is different. And here's the part that I find it being in this city, people don't understand or appreciate. This is the Canucks doing. This is how they want to play this. Think about how they're deploying everyone.
Yeah.
What are we seeing a lot of? Tyler Myers, Ian Cole, Nikita Zadorov. I thought in a big way for the Canucks, there was a shift not only in the power and import of Quinn Hughes in game 5, but also it seemed like he played more. Seemed like there was a game plan change.
What likelihoods of a lineup change for game 6?
In terms of what? What are you thinking?
Well, I mean, you know, how married, I mean, PDG did have a nice night penalty killing. So, I just nibbling around the edges, getting Mikheyev off of, like, a lot of people are upset that Pettersson's got Mikheyev to pass to. And, you know, it's just not going to happen for Ilya Mikheyev right now. But not that they've got, you know, a 40 goal scorer waiting in the wings either.
Side note, that was Mikheyev's most noticeable game of the series, which doesn't really say a lot, because if you didn't tell me heading into game 5, I'm not sure that I would have known that he was on the team.
Yeah.
Hoglander, I thought he was way better in game 5.
Still, though, you know, you need some bottom line eventually, right?
Well, yeah, you cannot expect to be a 1.5 line team and win in the playoffs. No chance.
No.
What about a 2-line team? What about Lotto line and then Lindholm between Garland and Joshua, and take your chances?
It gives you a chance. And by the way, Joshua has been really quiet since game 1.
Let's see this.
And no one, you know, we kind of entered the series like, oh my God, this guy's going to take over the playoffs. And it's like, ooh, where's he been?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's room for improvement there.
What do you think? Do you think Lotto line becomes a staple here in game 6?
I love it as a break glass in case of emergency. And in some ways, I really wonder what the psyche of this team's going to be. How are they feeling? Does someone like an Ian Cole, who's won 2 Stanley Cups, help snap you back in line? Or is a game 5 loss something that turns into game 7?
Shelov's in game 6?
I would have no reason to divert from Shelov's. He's looked big. He's been confident. I love the swagger that he has. He definitely has some big game energy.
Mm-hmm.
I do think if they lose game 6 that they're going back to DeSmith for game 7.
What can you tell us about DeSmith? What's the update on the injury there?
I believe it was a slight groin strain that he probably would have played through, except they're already out Demko and they didn't want to have him play and make it worse and then have to go to Shelov's and only Shelov's.
Do you think he'll be 100% for Friday?
I think he's close to 100% now.
Okay.
And do you think Hughes got a little bit better in terms of?
He looked better.
Yeah.
He looked like a different player.
Yeah.
In game 5.
Yeah. So hopefully
the offense, everything was running through him again. It just wasn't the first 4 games.
Further to your game 6 becoming game 7, by the way, Mark Crawford yesterday told us back when he was with the Canucks versus the Wild, they lost game 5. He said, we lost the series in game 5. We didn't lose it in game 7. And they gave up a 3-1 series lead. So let's hope that didn't just happen.
Zadorov making himself some money here.
I guess. I mean,
how much?
I got the same question about, was it you guys that asked me whether or not this contract or this playoff will hurt Filip Hronek and his earnings?
Well, the second half as well.
No, that was my next question, actually.
Well, first to answer Hronek, like the ARB case isn't changing. It's still going to be $7.5 million. So if that's the 1-year ARB deal, what's the longer term look like? Now, when it comes to Zadorov, I mean, I think there's certainly an expectation in his camp that he's going to get paid and paid handsomely. I think there's a real limitation there in terms of what he is and isn't. But this is the time of year when he throws big hits and scores a goal like that maybe someone's willing to pay. I just think, to me, I think he's a solid 4-5. And if you start to get into the territory of paying him $6 or $6.5 million a year, there's going to be some varying points in the year that you're going to be really disappointed.
Yeah.
Great seeing you.
Great to see you guys.
Yeah, we hope to see you again.
Hope to see you again.
But I hope it's next round.
Yes, indeed.
As opposed to, game 7.
Frank Seravalli, everyone. Hey, everybody, if you're enjoying what you're seeing here, then follow along with Sekeres Price on YouTube. I promise more content coming.
The kids call it subscribe on YouTube.
Well, how about liking it?
Do that as well. Smash it right now.